We can so often within Chorus get to see all the data and the statistics about rollout and how it's doing and how it's being taken up. But it's when you get out into the communities, it's when you see the enthusiasm and the passion of people locally that it really comes to life. So it's an honour for me, and I recognise that it's a Friday night for all of you. It's not a particularly nice night out there. So thank you for taking the time to come here. This is a subject that is of particular passion for me. And I actually, just one thing I would note is it's also a real privilege to come back to an old stomping ground. I spent a lot of my 20s with my horse up into Horo, riding along that beach there, and I have some of my most amazing memories come from that time and from the people in that community coming into that countdown at the local mall to do my shopping on my way back home. So it was fabulous to do that drive again, come over the hill at Pukirua and see that incredible landscape and just go, oh, you know, it was a great uplift for me. Anyway, today I wanted to perhaps just demystify a little bit about ultra-fast broadband and then talk a little bit about what it means, not only just for New Zealand, but for small to medium businesses. I don't want this to be a lecture because I'm looking, and I've spoken to a number of you here, you've got incredible local skills and expertise. So maybe we should think about this as a conversation. So if there's things that you want to contribute, things that you want to ask on the way through, you know, we'd love to hear that as well. Who is Chorus? At its simplest, we're New Zealand's largest telecommunications company. Back in 2011, we went through what was quite a groundbreaking separation, and we had been a business unit of what was then Telecom, but we became a standalone network company. And what's really important about that is that we serve the entire industry as a wholesaler. We cannot sell to you as end users, but we sell to the people that you buy from, same price, same terms, same conditions. That does make us quite unique in the world, and the rest of the world is watching to see how UFB goes. And our whole purpose is about bringing New Zealand better broadband, because we fundamentally believe that this can be something that can ignite not only just social change, but also economic benefit for us as a country. It's a platform, but it is really up to how people want to grab hold of it. Why fibre? I realise that I don't want, you know, I know for many of you, you live and eat and breathe in this world and you'll understand it very well, but when we are out there talking to a lot of people, they don't necessarily understand what fibre and why it would be even different from copper. It is a fundamentally different technology because the data travels along light waves. If you think about it, we're effectively embedding a river of light into every home and every business throughout the country. And the reason that that's so important is that copper, great technology, was designed for voice way back when, and it did a really great job with that. But when it comes to data, you start to reach limitations, and we're hitting those limitations now because it's the performance of data with a copper connection is dependent about how long the signal has to travel. So it will vary greatly from house to house. It depends with copper if you've got a lot of people that want to use it at the same time, and if any of you had tried to do online TV viewing between 7 and 10 o'clock at night on a copper connection, some of you would have felt that slowdown and it would have been really frustrating. The difference with fibre is that this is a future-proof platform. Unlike copper, which takes a lot of investment for every upgrade that you do, fibre can quite easily be scaled up. We can do, right now we've got 100 megabits per second. That's effectively, it's about 10 times faster than what the average New Zealander would be getting right now. But you're already seeing gigabit, 2 gigabit per second, 10 gigabits per second coming out there globally. That just means that we have internet without boundaries for New Zealand. And we're going out to 75 or 80% of New Zealand. For Chorus, that's roughly 1.1 million premises that we will be doing. The other key thing about it is that it is interactive. So what I'm saying with that is that it goes the same speed both directions. Now, if you're just downloading a video, you probably really only worry about the download speed. But if you have a business and you are connecting with another business site and you're file sharing, you really want that same speed going both ways. Consistent performance, regardless of distance or location, and it is really stable. It's very resilient. You get a lot lower faults. So yes, we are going through a transition, but this is at the heart of all modern technologies. If you're using mobile, if you're using Wi-Fi, actually they don't work that well until you get fibre going out to connect those cell sites. When we look at the scale, we're building UFB across New Zealand as a government partner and working with CFH. So the blue ones are where we're going. There are other areas like Christchurch is with Enable, Hamilton is with UFF, Ultra Fast Fibre, and up in Whangarei it's with North Power. So there's a number of candidate areas going across the country, but I think what's really exciting for us, and the thing that's got the rest of the world looking at us, is not that it's fibre. There's other countries that are doing fibre and doing gigabit. It's the fact that we're doing it so far. Fibre to the home to 75% of a country has got analysts, and we talk to the analysts quite a lot around the world, going, actually, you know what's fantastic about this? It's not that you have a city that has speed, but you have every institution, you have every university, you have your research hospitals, you've got your small, you might have your fibre and into your agricultural centres, but then they're also linking back up to your supply and your exporters. We've got a nodal network, and it really allows New Zealand to begin to function and behave like a city of 4 million people. It helps us to overcome some of the inherent challenges of just being a small-scale market. So how are we doing so far? If I was to say to you there's, I think it lasts, what, 615,000 addresses that can get fibre, and it's about 14% uptake right now. Now you might listen to that and go, 14% doesn't actually sound that great. But we're 4 years into build, but actually we've only had what we call the service providers, Vodafone, Spark, and some of the larger ones in market for the last 2 years. So we kind of wanted to see how it tracked against some of the other technologies. And if you can see that little red line there, we reckon we'll hit about 16% by June, and then we're on a very steep curve. It's a curve that is faster than with Sky TV, and it's certainly faster than what we've seen with DSL and broadband. We're at a tipping point, we believe, and we can see that demand coming now, which is really exciting. And it's not a demand that's just for the urban areas. So this one here, and I realise there's a lot of information in this, but the key thing here, that yellow one there is all of the Chorus UFB areas. You can see Blenheim, Timaru, Palmerston North, Dunedin are all ahead of that average. It's not to do with how much of the build has been completed, that's what that black line is. It is actually to do with the passion of the local people. A lot of them were affected by the Gigatown campaign, or they've had strong local advocates that have really been driving it. And they've just said, this is a chance for us economically. This is a chance for us to keep our youth, which is one of the key things for many of them. It's a chance for us to think about how can we attract talent and how can we attract investment into our areas. So that's the other part to it. So if we want to just have a look and see, UFB available now, that's the dark blue in Paraparaumu. It's a very simple map, and then you can see where the total UFB build is going to go. Now it's still early, I think it's what, 27%?
That's right, and you're also in Raumati and Paiko.
Yes, yep. So we go wider. But also the priority premises will be, if not finished already, by the end of this year?
Yep, 90% of businesses by the end of 2015.
Yeah. That's one thing, but I think there's another thing that I just probably also alert, because some of you will be sitting there going, yeah, but I'm not going to get fibre yet. I'm going to be waiting a few years. I just wanted to highlight something, and look, I don't know how clearly you can see it. Every one of those dots is a premise with a connection. So what you can see on this side, this is what's available and fast. The purple is VDSL. Now VDSL is a high-speed copper technology that can deliver up to about 70 megabits per second. So it's actually really quite fast. And then you've got your fibre. If I look at what people have taken up, you can see they're all mostly yellow and red dots. That's just standard broadband. If I look at Paraparaumu, you can see the same thing. Now, before you start feeling bad about this, we've actually looked at this right across the country. 60% of New Zealanders using the Chorus network could be on better broadband. And that's a fairly extraordinary number. And one of the reasons why is that a lot of New Zealanders do not know that they can get better. And part of that is where the industry has come from. We're very used to buying broadband, and often we've been bought it on the basis of voice and a data cap. What we haven't actually bought is the speed or that capability of that network. So often we just simply don't know that we're not on the best broadband that's available. So if you're frustrated, can I suggest, have a look and actually find out what you can get, because you may be surprised. We had some people from Sky come in the other day and they were moaning that they couldn't get fibre. 2 of them already had it past their place and they just didn't know it. So I just wanted to flag that one for you.
Rosalie, can I just ask, where does Vodafone cable
sit in there?
Yeah.
Well, as you can see, that take-up, there's some big blanks. We're suspecting that's Vodafone cable. We don't have those maps. We don't know exactly where that goes, but that will definitely be a part of it.
And can you talk to that for a moment in terms of explaining the difference between
Yep.
DOCSIS 3 and
Yes.
4G?
I'm not actually as close to the Vodafone cable network as I probably like to be, but it is, the thing with cable is that this is a technology in the way that copper was originally designed for voice. The cable networks were originally designed for TV. And then the cable providers started to provide broadband and other things like that. And it's got a reasonable sort of upgrade path. But there are challenges with that technology as well, which is simply that the more people use it, you start to get it starts to slow down. I don't know if any of you have been on social media lately, but there's been a lot of commentary on this in Wellington at the moment. And I guess, you know, it's part of a challenge because fibre is coming and it's kind of overbuilding a lot of where that cable is. The great thing for all of you is that you get choice. And that's really a good thing.
How does TV work over fibre? Because Vodafone at the moment, you can have fibre down, or TV down, cable.
Yeah.
Can you get that down fibre?
Yeah. The way that it worked, it was a little bit like Sky. So you had to have your set-top box with cable, and you had to have a specific system and head ends that would deliver the television. So it was a bit like a broadcast medium, but you could control it through the set-top box. What's happening with fibre is that people are getting all of the on-demand. So Netflix, which has been launched in New Zealand, Lightbox with Spark, Apple TV, and so this is all over the top, but it's high definition and even ultra high definition if you've got the capability for it. And the great thing is that fibre's perfect for that because it's a very consistent, very stable performance for it. We've been doing tests on it. With people at work that have got, you know, ultra, not only a high-speed broadband, but they've also got a 4K TV, you know, one of these really ultra-high definition TVs, and we've been testing how that performance goes. It manages very well, particularly when you've got multiple people using it at the same time, because it doesn't have those same issues of contention that you get with the other networks. Now, Sky is interesting. Yeah, Sky, because Vodafone is bundling Sky. Sky uses satellite, but it is looking at upgrading its boxes to actually also deliver on demand, because clearly there's a lot of people that are using Netflix and these other on-demand channels. So they are doing, they've launched Neon, and they're also looking at how they can bring that broadband capability in as well.
Hi, I had a conversation about TV. I mean, TV's over really, isn't it? I mean, it's going to be on the internet. You know? I mean, it's very obvious. TV companies want to be able to know exactly who's watching be able to know who to advertise to, etc. Whereas a TV rating is based on 600 people and tell you nothing. So, you know, a two-way system is what.
It's fundamentally changing things. It is fundamentally changing. And look, I can speak as someone who uses Lightbox, uses Netflix, churned from Sky, because I get everything that I want, and I probably watch 80% on demand, about 10%. I find it very hard to watch TV ads anymore. And I know I'm not alone anecdotally. I can see some nodding faces around the room. So we are on that sort of paradigm shift that's occurring right now. But the thing that also I want to think about here, because we can talk about these sort of attitudes of consumption, but what does it really mean for New Zealand? If we think about, you know, economically and nationally, you know, we live in a global cul-de-sac. We're never going to get rich selling to ourselves. And 70% of our exports are primary products. We want to rebalance that. We want to become more services and innovation-led. But also the challenge with the primary products is that, if you think of the dairy sector, we're price takers. We can't control the price. So the way that we make the money is by getting more efficient and more productive. And most of our ability to become more efficient and more productive is based on technology and what we can do with sensors and the Internet of Things going forward. And also we work more hours, but we actually produce less for every hour worked. There are some real challenges for us as a country in terms of our productivity. So the opportunity through this is, how do we develop and innovate and move up the value chain, export to the new and thriving Asia-Pacific markets weightlessly, not having to sort of export off the wharves, and develop a strong internet economy and take New Zealand to the world. And this is actually a really interesting challenge for us, because on the one hand, we know that New Zealand is actually a social leader in our usage of the internet. We love connectivity. We're not behind. So our uptake in things like smartphones and use of tablets and use of smart TVs, we've gone from being behind, but right now we're up there amongst the other developed countries and global leaders. We're second in the world for social media usage. We're second for daily use of tablets. In other words, we are great consumers of the internet. But to capture the real benefits, we also need to be creators. And this is where we see, I guess, the gap, but also the opportunity. So this is from the World Internet Project, which measures New Zealand against a whole lot of other markets around the world. All of us, we rate the internet as our most important source of information. That may be why they're going to stop. Are they going to stop printing the yellow pages? Because I don't know how many of us use it anymore, but it's pretty rare. 81%, 86% of us buy goods online. 47% prefer online shopping to physical stores. Then you look at the small to medium businesses, 50% have an online presence. Yeah. 38% have a business website, and 9% have social media.
That is such a worry for companies.
Well, the challenge there is that we're not going where our customers are talking about us, where they're researching us, and where they're buying. And if you actually look at that circle up there, so this is from the MYOB Business Monitor, August 2014 last year. If you actually look at what people are doing, email and online banking are still the biggest areas. If you look at using e-commerce to buy, or social networking, or email marketing, or even e-commerce selling, it's only 13%. So there is a shift that we need to be thinking about for our small to medium businesses. And of course, we wanted to look at what this actually meant for UFB and UFB uptake. And so with the latest statistics, we could see 20% of small businesses nationally had taken up fibre. And when it was asked what was the barrier, a lot didn't actually know it was available. It goes back, it's one of the reasons why these sorts of events become really important, just so people know what to connect to it. However, I think the other thing that also came up was that for a lot of businesses, they think about telecommunications as a cost of doing business. They think about it as, we need to do this because it keeps our lights on, it's our telephone. And they don't actually think about it as a source of strategic advantage. And this is actually our opportunity to grow our business. And yet we know, and this is not just locally but globally, UFB, there's been 2 studies that have been done, and it was put at 32 and 44 billion. I don't know how much they referenced each other over 20 years, but 34 billion in productivity gains, with most of that coming from small business. And so these are New Zealand statistics. High internet use firms, 4 years ahead of the average firm in their industry. 6% more productive. They grow faster, they export more. Internationally, the numbers were actually twice the size of revenues, twice the profitability, twice the job growth, twice the export growth. It was literally a doubling factor. Sorry. Nice to be rearranged. And that digitally engaged small businesses have revenues 20% higher than those less engaged. So there is an opportunity there. The question is, how do we begin to make that real? You know, what is it that we need to be thinking about? So we were looking at it and thinking, well, actually there's really 3 buckets. The first is, for a lot of small businesses, cash flow. We need to manage cash flow, we want to manage costs. The first thing is that actually fibre can be a lot cheaper for a lot of small businesses. And it's because you reduce the number of lines that you're having to pay for. If you've got multiple phone lines that are coming in, you can reduce that down to 1 fibre. So you can actually, there's ways of managing costs as well as improving efficiency through this.
Just to give you an idea of what that means in dollar terms, you're looking at about $40 a head per line coming into the business over copper. Let's say you've got, you know, five lines there. That's $200 a month. A month you can save just on the voice costs alone.
Not only that, there's also the chance to consolidate shared functions across offices. Actually, I got a great one from Mike from CCS Technologies today, which is where you've got Kapiti Law that's set up office here, but a lot of the data and the resource that they have is still at the Waikanai Resource Centre. They don't want to duplicate that here. They want to be able to access that. You can hear that from other multi-site businesses where they actually, you know, the shared resources of HR and office management, they don't want to necessarily have it all distributed around the offices. They can manage that centrally. Streamlining connections to sites and suppliers. There's actually a great video on the CFH website about the panel beating firm and how it really helped them in terms of streamlining their efficiency and responsiveness, because they could take the high definition and they could immediately interact with the insurer to get an assessment that was done and therefore process and facilitate it that much faster. The easier remote working, the reducing travel and using mobile and video conferencing, and that's actually really quite compelling. There's a couple of cases that we know of, for example, BizDojo, that they set up these sort of managed suites for people to come and work in offices there on a sort of temporary basis, or because they don't want to actually use a home office. And they had people that had come to New Zealand, been looking for jobs, but actually ended up still working back internationally to the UK, because with Fibre, they could video conference with their teams and then they could do the work during their downtime. So it actually worked really well for them. And then the opportunity that you have here is that you can set up that type of thing for the people in Wellington who need a bit more work-life balance or need to be closer to home, but have access to all the resources of the office, but from a local base here, instead of having to carry it all around on memory sticks or on their actual laptop. The reaching new customers online, I mean, that's sort of fairly self-evident, but also the upskilling of staff through online video training. We actually had a really interesting conversation in Owakuni with it was a automotive dealership, And he was saying, look, it's such a challenge for us because we want to keep on top of all the new sales, of all the features. We want to be able to access that. We need to keep upskilling staff on that. But it's so costly to us to send them off to Auckland or off to Hamilton to actually go to the... If we could access that online and have access to those tools and capability, that would just help us remain really relevant for our customers. Or even just new services and new customer value. The live video streaming, for example, of weddings to people overseas. Or alternatively, the funeral home here that wants to be able to video funerals and have friends and family who can't make it here to be able to see it live. I mean, these are just some practical examples, and I know you've got Xero out there. You know, we talk a lot about cloud capability and there's a lot of hype about it, but ultimately what cloud is that it brings big business capability into small business hands. You don't have to go and get an HR manager. You don't have to go and get a CTO and a whole IT function. You can begin to access that capability and those dashboards, and it just streamlines the business. Any sort of thoughts? Because I'm interested to draw on the examples here in the audience. Are there sort of examples or thoughts from within this group about those?
I'm just a wee bit concerned about the impact on the labour market and the sort of the shift in employment. And there's been some study done to suggest that a number of middle management jobs are going to go as a result of this technology. Have you done any work to measure that?
There internationally have been efforts to do that, because one of the trends that we can see longer term is that with the use of very fast broadband and the data analytics, the ability to get large amounts of data and process it very fast, it means that quite a lot of data type jobs, if you think about some of the legal processing work, that type of work, for example, will by nature begin to move. There will be more automation in manufacturing. I would say that, yes, there is that. There is a counterfactual to that as well, which is that we're also seeing technologies that are empowering smaller businesses again. So if I think about something like 3D printing, that actually means that you no longer have to have big processing, manufacturing, distribution, inventory. You can actually have small businesses with an area that using 3D printing can manufacture on demand the parts that are needed for specific machinery. So it is a shift, it's a global shift, and it's inevitable. I think the biggest thing for us is how do we train and prepare our children for this generation of work that's taking place.
Actually, I could probably add to that, Brian, in the sense of we did a case study with a Nelson cold storage a few years ago, and they were using Network Tasman, very early fibre. And what they found was actually it's a change to more knowledge-based jobs. So yes, there were roles that no longer existed, and you would expect that if there was true transformation occurring. But equally, there were new roles being created. So Nelson Cold Storage found that they had far few office managers because they were actually able to do live inventory management with their fibre, where they were tracking produce from, say, kiwi fruit, from the farm gate all the way through to the container going on board a ship. And they now had guys who were working on the application development around inventory management, and they actually developed their own bespoke software for inventory management that did this and met all the health and safety requirements and regulations for food export, and less people just doing data entry in the office. So I think it's probably worth realising that it's more of a transformation than necessarily a loss.
Yes.
It's a change.
Yes, yes.
It's similar to what's happening in some of the bigger organisations where you get a news item that says, oh, 100 jobs are going. But they're creating 120 new ones.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
And some of the people who were in those jobs that are going, aren't necessarily going to be able to fill the new ones because they don't have the skills, or they can't, or don't want to, or whatever
Yeah.
skills to go into them.
And the thing that we have to recognise as well is that we're part of a global economy. So we have to be able to improve productivity. We have to be able to remain competitive. There's a gentleman at the back that's been trying to ask.
Two things. First one, we converted over to Fibre on the radio station. We had 11 phone lines coming into the place, and we were spending upwards of $1,100, $1,200 a month on just communication. We went to Fibre about 18 months ago, and our bills dropped by sort of $700, $800, $900 a month. So it has been extraordinary as far as the cost effectiveness of using Fibre, and that has been fantastic. We also deal with a huge number of retailers in both Kapiti and Horowhenua who are finding that it's getting tougher and tougher and tougher in the retail sector because of the slide you had earlier, how so many people are buying stuff online. It's almost like they're using now retail shops as a way to go in and try some clothes on or try something on, hold this thing that they're going to, then they go and buy it off Trade Me or whatever at 1/10 of the price or whatever they can get a big discount. Is there some kind of a strategy? Is there some kind of a way that we can actually help retail to move with what's going on in this new modern era of everything online? Is there some way that we can actually retain retail, or is retail going to be a dinosaur that's going to disappear?
Can I be answered there? There are people around and locally based that are precisely doing that, so helping the retail market get involved in online and web presence. It's as simple as that. There's been a couple of workshops over the last couple of days with respect to that. So definitely, I think it's a matter of the retail catching up with this development, and we are moving into a global economy. This is breaking down not only geographical barriers but time barriers as well. And I've got a little story about that. So there's a whole lot happening. It is transformative, and retail's got to catch up at the end of the day. But they're not the only people that have to catch up. This is huge transformation in a lot of ways. But there are people out here that have been demonstrating over the last few days precisely that sort of to help guide you through that.
It does fundamentally change retail. Having said that, there is always that place for the mix and match between them. But, you know, as just one example, a friend of mine went to Timaru and was utterly stunned to find a shoe shop there that had the most amazing shoes that she loved. So she's now online, tracking, ordering, getting them sent up to her. She's become a loyal customer that actually she couldn't have otherwise been, because, you know, she doesn't live within Timaru and is not part of the footfall. But it is going to lead to a change in the nature of retail and how we think about customers and how we engage with them. So where do we go, and some of the things to actually consider. Availability, I've given you an address up there. You can also go to your service providers to find out actually what is the capability that is available to you or to your business, and when it's actually going to be coming. The install process. The nature of developing and installing a new technology means that there is a physical act that is required. You can no longer just get a modem sent in the mail, plug it in, and it's going to work. So there is a process of digging up streets, which some of you will be familiar with. There is the process of having to run the fibre into a premise. We have increasingly developed new ways and means of doing that to be less disruptive. And so a part of the process is what we call ABC, is that you would contact, if you wanted fibre, you would contact your service provider, and then they would organise for a person to come out and basically scope your property, talk you through what you would need to go through and how you would, what would be the nature of that and what it would look like. And then we go through the stages of building to the outside and then building into the inside. Now, when we get to the interesting challenge of right-of-ways, which is where you've got townhouses or multiple dwelling units, office blocks, complexes, we have an interesting challenge often with consents, and that can take more time. For you to get your building owner or your other people in your right-of-way on board makes it and really can streamline that process. There is a lot of work that has been done now. We've put a lot of effort into keeping up and getting to our Accelerate plans. Now, you'd need to talk to your RSP what's on top of it. I was given some numbers today. That could be about 110, 125. If you went back a few years, you would have been talking thousands, literally thousands for that kind of connection. It's really becoming within reach. So look, my final slides, I just wanted to go through these really quickly because these are the things that excite me. We will be a top 10 connected nation in 2020. We are actually doing something that is pioneering and world leading, and we should not lose track of that in terms of the detail. This is the standard fixed broadband today, and we're pretty high there. But in terms of our coverage, the only ones that will exceed us are places like Singapore, which are the size of Taupo and have a population density of 7,000. So we should be really proud as a country of what's been laid here. And the second thing, which I thought was really exciting, some of you may know we went through the Gigatown competition and Dunedin won that, and they started getting gigabit connections in January, and you can see the way that they've shot up. So we thought we used speedtest.net, which some of you will have tried for your speed test. So we had a look at that, and we compared Dunedin to the other top 10 wealthiest cities, and it came out as number 2, which we thought was very cool at 75 megabits per second. Then we did the June speed test result, and we had a look, and actually Dunedin came second to Paraparaumu. Now, this doesn't mean that this is your average speed, but it is a leading indicator. It means people are getting fast connections, and they're trialling them out, and actually, on the world rankings, you're starting to feature, and that will get attention. So I wanted to end on that very positive note.